So in Portugal, it's not complicated. Also because, like I said, or like I like to say, we are a small country, and I think that helps to be. We just have, let's say, one system. So our system says that that until you are 13 years old, you play only in your region. So imagine that Sporting is playing the first national league and they get regulated. They can be regulated. They will go to second national. And if they are regulated on the second national, they go to the regional, the first division on the regional. So it's always going down and up according to your results.
Welcome to another edition of the Inside Scoop. My name is Neil Crawford. I'm your host and also the founder of Anytime Soccer Training. If you're not familiar with the Inside Scoop, it's a podcast dedicated to helping parents learn about the soccer pathways that would be available to their child if they lived in another city around the world. And that is exactly what we're doing today. I'm joined by esteemed coach, UEFA licensed coach, former scout, and now the general manager of FuteBALLER, which is an organization that specializes in helping teams and individuals travel to Portugal and other parts of Europe. So, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself, and we're going to get started.
So hi, like you said, my name is João Plantier. I am the general manager at FuteBALLER. I'm also a UEFA Pro coach, and I have experience working with one of the best clubs in Portugal. So I've worked for Sporting Club Portugal for 7 years as a head coach for the youth level. I also worked with Manchester United soccer schools in Portugal, and I have now worked with 2 private academies. Now I'm working with FuteBALLER that works with US clubs and US players and US coaches.
So wait a minute, your last name, is it French? It's French.
My last name is French, yes.
So just before we jump in, I'm just curious, how do you get it? Are your parents from France?
No, I have family from there, but back on times, right? So I even don't know how to speak French.
Oh, okay. So that's cool, man. That's very interesting. All right. So here we go. Now, for the purpose of because we've been talking a lot, for the purpose of this interview, I'm going to refer to you as JP. I hope you don't get offended.
No problem.
But it's like my dad said, I don't care what you call me, just call me. So anyways, JP, we're going to jump this off. So how did you first get into soccer, and what were your playing experiences like?
Okay. My playing experience was only in a low level, so I played just almost amateur. I had my family that my grandpa played professionally back on times. So when I was little, I was just hearing him telling about all the stories that they had playing professional. And then his son, my uncle, also played in a high level here in Portugal. So all the stories in the family were about football. So I got the passion. I didn't get the skills to play on that level that they were. But then my grandfather, he was also a coach. So listening a lot of times him talking about the strategy for the game, his passion about the game. So that's where I started to get excited. And when I was on my 9th grade, I said to my parents, I want to be a coach. I want to study sports, and I want to go all the way that I can to be a coach. So I tried to keep playing as much as I could, but then I went to do my degree in sports, and I started to coach when I was 18 years old, when I started to be in college. So I got a club that accepted me as an internal coach. And then on the year after, I was already as a head coach one of the teams. So then I spent 8 years before I went to Sporting Club Portugal, where I was working as a head coach for 7 years there. So that is my background.
So before we jump into how soccer is organized in Portugal, I'm going to ask a very obscure question, okay?
Go ahead.
How would you describe the knowledge, and I'm going to say gap, between being a player and being a coach? And what I mean by that is, let's say that at 18, you played for 10 more years. You're 28, all right? So you from 18, 10 more years you played at a high level, and then at 29, you retired and started coaching. So that's one scenario. And I want to understand your perspective of, or instead of that, at 18, right, you started getting your education and coaching. So now you're 29 and you've been coaching for 10 years. Describe that gap between those two experiences.
There is a lot of conversation about that, mainly because you start to watch some coaches that they didn't have the experience to train, to play, and then they went to be great coaches, and we had also the opposite part of it, right? I don't think that is the most important question. I think the most important question on it is that if you can understand the game, if you can understand people, and there are also different types of coaches. If we are talking about youth level coaches, when you need to teach the game, and when you don't need to think so much about the results, but you need to think about the development process. It's difficult. I think it's difficult for just a professional player to go and to train a youth team on a recreational level, where you need to teach them to make fun games where they can still learn in how to develop. I think this is a difficult task for a professional player, and maybe it's easier for a person that study more on that part. But I think this is also about sensibility, in a way that you need to understand what you need to teach in different times of the development process.
If you had to go back into coaching full time, where are you most passionate about? Which age group?
I had different times of my life that I wanted to do different things. There was a time of my life that when I started, I thought I want to train at the club that goes and plays Champions League. So that is something that I had on my mind. To play Champions League is something that is would be amazing, right? But so I would not say that I would not love to have that experience. But what I love more is to be in the game, is to develop players, is to help players being better. Sometimes when I coach, when I go to clubs, and when I have the opportunity to do some guest coaching, I love the process of being with them and training and make them better. But answering short, I would say that to be in a high level of youth, it's an amazing thing that I love to be.
All right. So now let's compare and learn about the youth soccer pyramid in Portugal versus what we have in the States. So the very short version in the States is it's complicated because it's not unified. We have stakeholders who have private interests who help create what we consider to be our pyramid, but it's not centrally planned. Okay. So the way our pyramid basically works is we have two, if you want to say, kind of parallel things going on. We have our equivalent of our FA, U.S. Soccer Federation, who has the various state associations, and those state associations govern the leagues and the carding system for players who participate in their association, their members. Okay. So North Carolina, they have these member clubs, and the state association creates a league structure for them, and it has the various divisions. Fine. But there's a parallel system as well. And one of the big ones is called U.S. Club Soccer. So that is not governed by the state association. It is under the umbrella of the football, U.S. Soccer Federation, but it's best to think of them for all practical purposes, almost like private schools. Yeah, private schools are under the U.S. Education, right? But they are their own entity. They have their own rules. They have less restrictions in some regards, more in others, but they're not the same as the public school system. And the interesting thing is some of these leagues can be higher than the federated leagues. And then some of the federated leagues and players can be higher than some of those other leagues. So I say all of that to say it's not as easy for a parent, unless you're like really, really into it, to discern the level. And there's not a clear, what we would call club neutral pathway to becoming a professional player and professional coach. And I'll end with this, but I wanted to tee it up because you're going to explain Portugal. When I say club neutral, that means if I have a child who has professional aspirations and has some talent, as a parent, I have to be very discerning about the environment that I put the child in terms of exposure, not just development. They can be in the greatest club in the world in terms of developing them. They can love the coach. They can love the players. They can be getting great training. But I have to be very intentional about the trade-off between being in that club versus being in a club that's going to get them exposure. Now that I said all that, explain how the pyramid works in Portugal and how what I just said compares to that.
So the funniest thing is that you said that you will explain shortly, and you took so much time because it's so complex, right?
Yes.
And
I knew you were going to say that too. I can't, and I'll try my best to be concise. And I only gave you like the 2-second version. It's so complicated.
It's complicated. I know. So in Portugal, it's not complicated. Also because, like I said, or like I like to say, we are a small country, and I think that helps to be. We just have, let's say, one system. Okay, there is no different systems from. So our system says that that until you are 13 years old, you play only in your region, and until 13 years old, you don't have divisions. You play by series, and of course, if you won the series, then you face another series, but always in your region. So I'm in Lisbon, so in the Lisbon region, we will try to find on the under 13s the champions of that series of all the under 13s. On the under 14 up, you start to have divisions. Okay, so and then we start with regions, and then on the under 15s you have the highest division is national, but even the national starts first in region, like the country is split on 6. And then goes to, if all the ones that win on those 6 regions, they face and they play against each other to get the under 15 champion. And that is the same for the under 17s and the under 19s. Okay. Then the good thing that the federation created, so it's all ruled by the Portuguese Federation. Okay. All root. Of course, we have the different associations. So the regions they have their own associations that control the referees, all the league. But then when you play the national part, then is the federation that controls that part. The federation created a couple of years ago the under 23 that they call it the Revelation League. And the only clubs that can play that under 23 competition are the clubs that have their main team on the first or second league, professional league in Portugal. So those clubs, they can participate on the under 23 league. And it's a great step for players that are not still in the right moment to play senior league. There are some players that take a little bit more time to get to that, and usually they go and they are in that league. And then most of the best clubs, they have also a second team. And that second team usually plays on the second league or third Portuguese league. But all this that we are talking is ruled by the Portuguese Federation.
All right, so let's break a couple things down. What about the academies? Do the non-academy teams, and I'm defining, and you can clarify, a team that's associated and is a pipeline to the professional first team, and then a non-academy is a team that they don't have a professional first team. So first of all, does that even exist? And then secondly, do they play each other in the various regions, or is there a special league for the academy teams?
No, it's all the same league. They have divisions. So here it's also the same. So imagine that Sporting is playing the first national league and they get regulated. They can be regulated. They will go to second national. And if they are regulated on the second national, they go to the regional, the first division on the regional. So it's always going down and up according to your results. And all the teams can be on the first national league. Even if you don't have the first team playing professional, you can be there.
Okay, so they have divisions, and your homework is send me a PDF or a link that explains this, and we're going to just try to put together a fun PDF with your branding on it so people can understand the details. So we're not going to get into all the details, but the bottom line is, and that's kind of how France is, their academies get relegated and promoted. Obviously, the academy is more than likely going to stay in the top division, but technically speaking, you can play against an academy if they get relegated. And I'm juxtaposing that to the U.S., which does not have that system for the academies. And the UK doesn't really have that kind of system for their academies. They have it for everybody else, but you don't typically have a grassroots club playing against an academy unless it's just a special arrangement. Okay, I got that. The next thing, though, is in American culture, and this is a broad generalization, guys, don't no hate mail, a broad generalization. Okay? We tend to associate the level of competition. We think there's a relationship between the competitive game, the level of competition in the competitive game, and the development piece. So like you got to play iron sharpens iron, or you got to play competitive teams and competitive games. That's part of that gaming program, is part of the development piece. That is used oftentimes to justify traveling and playing teams outside of your region. It's complicated though, guys. It's complicated. I know I'm not characterizing it right. But in Portugal, do parents ever say, man, yeah, we're playing in this region, but we really need to be playing teams on the next region as well so our kids can get better? Do they think like that in general?
They do on the younger ages, like I've mentioned to you, younger ages, they play on the regional, they play Serie, and they play the clubs that are more close to. Okay, so on those ages can happen, and usually it's a bad thing that everybody is saying, that if you play 2 rounds with 12 teams where you are playing and you are the best team and you are always winning 12-0, 15-0, 16-0, so that is something that happens, and parents and clubs and coaches, they complain about it. There was a time of the year that they do just 1 round first with the closest clubs, and then from there on they start to put the teams that were in first place together, the teams that were second place together, to try to match the level. And then, yes, a second round, a league with two rounds. But they stopped doing that because then comes the part of parents complain about the costs when you start to go and to need to take your car to, and here is completely different from what we have in the US. So here, the parents complain to drive 40 minutes to have a match. They start to complain about it. So the federation started to say, okay, younger ages, they just play in the same region. And then when they are getting older, they start to play different regions.
All right. So now let's assume I move there and I have a 10-year-old son. And then and then you tell me if there's any major differences with the girls' side as well, okay? And I come to you and I say, JP, I need to get them in the soccer. Let's talk about the various experiences that they would have access to. And then I'm gonna ask you for some details. Let's talk about your soccer schools, the entry level. What are they gonna get and how does that work?
So when you start, you can start with 5-year-olds going to a club, and usually you get the opportunity to play. You have like 2 sessions per week, and usually they do like one match per month, where they organize with different types of clubs to play, like maybe 3 matches on the same day. They do like a small tournament to play one time per month. That's the normal until you are starting to play in the competition part, right? So when you are 10 years old and or 9 years old, and you start to have 3 sessions per week, and then
but hold on though. Let's say you're 9 years old and you stay in the recreational. What is the programming going to change? Is the programming going to change for you in general?
doesn't change.
Okay, so let me be super clear on this, because this is actually interesting. We've already established in previous interviews that you're going to get a paid coach, not in the order of magnitude that we get in the States, but someone other than a parent who may have gone through some license and actually works for the club and doesn't think of themselves necessarily as we're just going to have fun and blah, blah, blah. Like they actually trying to develop players. And the professional academies have eyeballs on those recreational programs. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah. And let me just tell you this, Neil. I had a player that was a goalkeeper, and he stayed on the recreational level until 13 years old. And then he did 1 year in the competition, and then he went to Sporting, where he did all his youth. So this is just to show you that the recreational part of it can have really a development plan where you are getting better and better.
Yeah, and that's already unique than our typically, and this is a generalization, because the country, America, is massive, so it's just different. That's a broad generalization. Another thing that's unique is you're telling me they typically get 2 sessions a week. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And then the next thing that's unique is you're telling me they typically organize what we call those festivals, where you get everybody together and you just kind of play. But you're saying they do 1 match per month. Is that standard?
I would say for or each 2 weeks. Depending in the club that you are, but we are talking about recreational, right?
Yes.
So that's what they do. 2 sessions. There are parents that maybe can pay just for 1 session per week, and then they have that festival, like you call, each 2 weeks or each 1 time per month, something like that.
And how much roughly are the parents paying? And how long is a typical recreational / soccer school season?
Okay, so the season starts usually September and goes until the end of June.
Okay. That's another difference. Our recreational programs in general, our entry level programs, normally about 8 weeks.
Okay.
So that's interesting. Okay. And then how much are the parents typically paying? Like, how does that work?
So, and this is almost the same regarding recreational and competition part. So usually the standards, what the parent pay to play, it will be around 50 euros per month. And then you have to pay usually the equipment, the gear that you use. And when you have matches, usually the parents need to take their kids to the match on their own car. And if you attend like a tournament, then you need to pay for the tournament that you will go. So if you need to take, that happens like once per year or twice per year maximum, that you go to a tournament and you need to pay. If the tournament is far away and if you need to stay, then you also will pay for the hotel. But this is something that not all the clubs do. So it's completely different from what you have and I'm talking, this is the same for recreational and is the same for the competition that we are talking. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the competition because I have a question on that. But so keep going though. So let me throw this at you then. All right, because that was gonna be my next lead into. But let me ask you this about the recreational. Can a kid play recreational all to the age that they like age out 18 or 19? Can you actually play recreational to the end, or does it stop at some point before you become an adult?
Usually, almost all the clubs, they have the recreational part until 12, 13, 14 years old maximum. Usually they stop there.
So then what if you're 15 and you will play competitive, but you'll just play at one of the lower level competitive?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, and now you bring to the next point about the cost. In the States, we do have an in-between programs. We call it Rec Select, or in my area, they call it Challenge because they have all these names. And I'm not going to get into that, but they have all these names, right? They call it everything except what it is. Like instead of, big, small, medium, we don't do this. It's Premier, Super, blah, blah, blah. You know how it works. So anyways, so that we do have something like that gets you, it's a little bit more expensive, but not like breaking the bank expensive. And then you can go to competitive. But one of the challenges we have is we don't have a clear delineation between recreational and competitive, which has some pros and cons. I say all of that to say, if you go from recreational to our equivalent of competitive, it will be a substantial price difference. Yeah. But the cheapest you can get will be about twice as much as you're paying for your thing. That's about the cheapest, absolute cheapest. And that's not including a lot of the travel and stuff. I say all of that to say, I wanted to talk about the inflection point. And you kind of answered this, but I want to be super clear. 9-year-old, somebody sees something in the kid and says, I think you should play competitive. The price is going to be roughly the same.
Yeah, it will be the same. The only thing that could be different, and it's almost nothing, is that you will have to pay the registration fee for the federation, and that will cost like also 50, 60 euros first registration on the federation. So then the monthly payment will be also around the same, around the 50 euros. There will be some clubs that you will have maybe 30 euros, but there will be a club that will be 75. But so I would say the average will be around 50 euros per month. Pay the equipment, the same as the recreational part. And then if you have to play far for a tournament, then they will say, this tournament will cost you 300 euros. And is including the food, the hotel, and the accommodation. So something like that, right?
So then let me ask you this. What am I going to see as a parent in terms of the training environment between what you consider to be your soccer schools in that competitive program? number of contact hours, the quality of the coaching, the standards? What am I going to see different in general?
Yeah. So then when you go to the recreational, to the competition, usually most of the clubs, they train one more time per week. So they start to train 3 times per week in general. And then they have every weekend, they have one match that they play. Regarding the coaching, then is required. It's not possible for you to don't have a UEFA C coach. So you need to have a UEFA C coach on that, even if you are 9 with the under 10s. That's where we start the lead system. So you need to have that UEFA C coach. And then you start to talk, because you start to have competitions, matches, league. So you start to prepare your team to play a match every weekend, right? And when you are on the other process, you don't have that part. So you are working only on the development process and everything. In the other part, you have the same development process, but you have also a match that you will play, where you see where the team needs to be better. Even that, I think that, of course, the most important thing is the player development on those ages, and not so much the team development.
Is it unusual to have a coach that coaches both at the recreational level and at the competitive level?
Yeah. I started my
No, I mean at the same time though. Like I got one recreational team and one competitive team. Is that unusual?
No, it's usual. I started my career like that, having 3 teams on the recreational. So I said when I got my license, I said I want to work just with football. So I had 4 teams recreational, different times, of course, and then 1 team that was playing competition. With that, I was able to work and doing my life only with football.
So in terms of the mentality of a coach, and I just explained to you, one of the issues we have is a club neutral pathway to become a professional. The mentality of a person like you, who is a young person, and at the time you probably didn't even have any kids playing in the sport, right? You were just coaching.
Yeah.
Is your mentality at that point, this is a stepping stone for me to go on and do bigger and better things eventually, like progressing my career, when you started at that level?
Yeah. And on that time, I was thinking that I would be the future coach of Champions League team. So I was working with them, but thinking that my results will take me to a different level, and a different level like that.
And that's one of the challenges I perceive, and folks can chime in on this. One of the challenges I perceive we have in the States. So at our recreational programs, it would be extremely unusual for a young person to say, you know what, I'm going to coach this recreational team because I want to gain this experience, because I have aspirations of coaching at a higher level, and clubs will notice that. That would be unusual. They would at least have to start at what we call the club level, but even then it's not so clear for them. And I think that's a challenge for attracting younger people into the sport of into coaching who don't already have children participating.
Let me just say one thing that I think is important. Here is not also normal that if you are coaching only, let's say on the recreational level, that you can go to a complete different. But there is one thing that is important. The clubs, when you start to do a good job with a 5-year-old, 6-year-old recreational level, what happens is that there are already scouts that goes to those festivals and see, okay, that coach, he does well. He do this. Some of these players, they perform really well. So when a club see that you give good feedback, your players are getting better, and they go and they're being called to train at a higher level club. So this is a parameter for you to analyze a good coach and to call him to a high level club. Okay.
Oh, and that's interesting. So thanks for that. So what is the short version of what it requires to get a UEFA C license?
Okay. So I don't know if it changed a little bit. Maybe it did. But for the C license, it's easy to get. I think you still need to have an experience as a player. I don't know if for the UEFA C or for UEFA B, but I think you should have a registration or as a player, even if in the most amateur level that you are. So I don't think there are specific things, but for the other ones, you have more specific. It's really tough to get at the moment in Portugal the UEFA or UEFA Pro. There is a huge queue waiting coaches to get UEFA or UEFA Pro level.
So, okay, but what I was trying to get at with the UEFA C license is what is the barrier to entry? You talked about you need to be registered as a player, but how much coursework do you have to do? Are we talking weeks, months, a year? What are we?
I took that more than 30 years old, so I don't remember 100%. But I think for that I took it was I think it was 3 months, and we had at that time 2 classes per week doing that.
All right. Now we're going to move on quickly because we've done a lot of content. I know you're getting tired. We're going to wrap this up soon. Training compensation and solidarity payment. Your equivalent of recreational. Oh, actually, let me take a step back. Do you define your teams as academy and grassroots? And if so, how does solidarity and training compensation work? So in the UK, for example, you have clubs that are considered grassroots. They don't have a professional academy per se, and they're not sending players to professional academies. But even if they were just an academy, it doesn't matter. If you develop, if you develop a player for a certain amount of years and they stay with your club for a certain amount of years, and then they get signed by another club's academy, and then that player ends up being a professional, there's a residual that is paid to that grassroots club or that other academy in those training compensation solidarity payments. I know I'm butchering it, but that's basically how it works. So scratch the part about being grassroots or academy, because it doesn't matter. If you have a youth player in your system and then they move on to do bigger, better things, there's a FIFA regulated compensation that's required. How does it work? Does Portugal fall under that as well?
Yeah. First of all, and to be clear, in Portugal, you don't have like the clubs that are academies or grassroots. You have clubs. Okay. Then if the player stays for, if I'm not mistaken, it's 3 years in the club doing their youth level. And if they sign a professional contract, not with this club. So imagine that a player stays 3 years in a youth club that don't have the team on the professional level. Then if he signs a professional contract, he will need to have a compensation. And every time that he gets sold, also the club where he were when he was doing that, they will need also to pay him to pay the first club where he got that part, the youth development.
Do your clubs, is this something that happens or does not happen, or maybe happens sometimes, have membership fees that happen to also help support soccer?
Yes, they do. So all the clubs, they have members that pay like a fee, but we are talking about a small amount. But the clubs have a member fee.
So let's elaborate on that now. Like literally, that's so different than how our soccer clubs are set. I just learned about it actually interviewing someone 2 weeks ago. What are we talking about? Like, you're a member of a club and what do you get for that?
I will explain you in 2 different ways, like 2 different levels of clubs. So a club like Sporting Club Portugal, they have the member fee where you can be a member by €6.50, and you can be a member. And the only thing that you get with that is a card that gives you some discounts, or when you put gas, or when you do that. So you can get some discounts to be a member of Sporting in certain different types of collaborations and partnerships that they have. Okay.
And we would call that in the States, we would call that a loyalty program.
Okay. Then also for you to get tickets for the match, you will pay less if you are a member than if you are not, and you have access first than the others for the matches of for the tickets for that match. Okay, so that's one. When you are doing the same for like last division club on the senior level, and you are a member, you pay every time, you pay like €2 or €3 per month to be a member of that club. Usually you do that because of your heart, nothing more than that. It's because you love the club, you want to help the club, and you are paying like €3 per month, and you have like maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people or maybe 200 people that just do that because they love the club and they want to be affiliated to the club.
And those membership fees, even though they're modest, do help support the soccer club, though.
They will help.
Fair.
They will help support. I think you also know this, but most of the clubs, they don't have just one sport, so they have different sports, and they will help the club supporting their costs. Now, I would not say specifically to one sport, but they will help support the costs of the club.
Okay, and then and in terms of funding a youth soccer club, especially I'm going to call them amateur, the non-sporting clubs, sporting FC type clubs, but even them as well. What role does the government play in funding them versus through what would be the sporting Ministry of Sport or even your FA? What role are there any direct payments to support youth soccer from the government?
The government has I would not say it's not a huge collaboration regarding funding to the clubs. They help with some things. Here, most of the clubs, it's also different from the US. Most of the clubs, they own their fields. So it's something that I know that is different. It's not the city. Some of them, they did like a partnership with the city to control the field for 90 years, something like that. So this is something that they do. And then they usually help with the maintenance of the field, putting a new artificial grass on the field, these type of things that they help with. And there was a time that according to the number of players that the club has, also they will help. According to the players that have special needs, financial problems, the government also helped to give some scholarships to those players in the way that they can play without paying. These are things that, and sometimes the federation helps with different. So if you give a good project to the federation according to something that they ask, and it start that with the female part, because I think you also know that we are having a huge. We are getting better in the female part, better and better and better, and more girls are starting to play now. But the federation had a huge process on that, so they helped getting and giving them some fees for them to have girls playing. So this was something that excited the clubs to have and to try to have more girls playing on their clubs and to have more teams. So yes, there is a help of the government, there is a help of the federation, but I would say that is not the main revenue of the clubs. It's not that for sure.
So to put this in a bow, and then we're going to move quickly on to the rest of it, and then I'm just going to invite you back on. It's too much to cover. To put this into a bow, though, what most Americans would be scratching their head on is you're offering 2 days a week of training. You get a certified coach at some level who is not a parent volunteer who is getting paid, and you have a gaming program, and you're going to charge anywhere from 35 to 75 euros a month, which is doable. I can picture it. But the big thing is the field cost. And you're saying that many of the clubs own their fields, but are there clubs that don't own their fields and have to rent them from a municipality? And if so, are you seeing that impact the cost of soccer?
Almost all the clubs, like I said, they own their fields. There are some clubs that wants to start and then they need to rent, or maybe a club that have just one field and they have so many teams that they need to go to another field and rent it one time or two times per week to have all the teams training. So that can happen.
So then putting that in a bow, the last thing is, what if I move there and I want to start a youth soccer club? Is there a lot of red tape, or is it easy for me to start a youth soccer club in Portugal? Relatively easy. Get registered with the FA and do my thing.
It's relatively easy. You need to make some formal things. It's easy to start. I would say it's not easy to have a space for you to be and to train. But it's I would say it's easy to start.
But I can get into those leagues that you mentioned. I can get into those leagues very relatively easy. They don't have a problem with me being in the league and playing regionally.
No.
Okay, man, we're going to go through the speed round, and I'm not just going to invite you back on. Thank you. I know it's been a long one. Manchester United soccer schools in Portugal, does that still exist? And what is that?
Now it stopped. I don't know if you remember, but I would say one of the fathers of the Portuguese methodology, his name is Carlos Queiroz. Do you remember him?
No.
Okay, so Carlos Queiroz, he was the assistant coach for Alex Ferguson at Manchester United back on times. He was also a coach for Real Madrid for one season. And he was the national coach for Portugal for many years. He was at Iran, at Colombia. He has a huge past in the Portuguese football. And he is also a teacher, and he created what I would say is the Bible of the methodology, the Portuguese methodology that almost everybody follows. So Carlos Queiroz, when he was at Manchester United, he was invited to give his name to a complex, to a facility here in Portugal, and he decided on that facility that he will open a Manchester United soccer school. So we did that, and we had that for, I think, was for 4 years. And I was just there 1 year due to one part of my story, but I was there for 1 year.
How did the parents perceive it? Did they look at it like, "Oh, Manchester United," or how did they perceive it?
The truth is that it was so strict on the way that we got to have Manchester United people coming over to talk about how drills about their methodology, things that they do. We got to have like the best player on the younger group to go to do a training camp to Manchester United. So this, for the parents, of course, they were looking like an opportunity also to show themselves. It happened that they went there to be seen, or they conquered like the right to do a training camp at their facility, and this was amazing, of course.
All right, so we're gonna breeze through, guys. This is part one. I gotta get you back on in a couple of weeks to finish this up, because I know it's been a long day and we got a lot to cover. I'm just gonna go as far as I can, and then guys, look forward to part two. All right, so let's talk about being a scout at Sporting. You say CP or FC?
CP is Sporting Club Portugal, Sporting Clube de Portugal.
I'm learning every day. So how did you get into scouting, which is going to be a lot different than coaching in some respects? Did you coach at Sporting and then started scouting, or how did that work?
No, so I was coaching a team called Oeiras, where I met Robbie, the founder of FuteBALLER. So when I was there, I had a person that invited me. And usually this is something that happens a lot here. So the big clubs, they invite coaches from the clubs because they see a lot of matches, and they invite them to collaborate with the club. So where they can, every time that they're on their own match, they're also seeing players, so they can start to say, okay, I saw a good player there, and then they make like their evaluation report to the club, and they're invited to watch more matches their own team, of course. So there was a person from Sporting that invited me to start collaborating with them and being a scout when I was coaching at Oeiras, and that's how I started. And I had like a 10-year experience as a scout there.
So let me go ahead and be clear about this. You're at one club and you're playing all these different clubs, and you're obviously having access to various players. Then someone at Sporting says, hey, we want you to help identify players. So are you identifying players that you're playing against and obviously on your team? Or are you going around the city looking at matches that you have no affiliation with as well?
Both, yeah.
And in the way it works in the UK, it used to be different, but they've changed it now where you have to be, for all practical purposes, an employee of that club to be a scout, basically. Were you just a free agent, or were you an employee, or how does that work?
It was more as a free agent, yeah.
Yeah, see, they used to do that a lot in the UK. I know more free agents, and then you get, depending on how the player does, you can get compensated. But I was just curious about that. What do you look for in a player that you are scouting at the various ages? And I know it's position specific as well. And let me ask you this. Did Sporting ever say to you, we have a need for this profile of player, this position, keep an eye out on that? Were they ever specific like that? And then also the first question in general, what are you looking for?
So we at Sporting, we were looking for good players, talented players. So that was the first thing, not the specific on those early ages. The thing that
how young? What was your age range that you were typically looking for?
Sporting search more on the younger ages, right? So from early 8 years old, 7 years old until I would say until under 19. But the truth is that every time that you are older, the number of players that are selected to be there are lower, right? So when they are younger, it's the opportunity is bigger. They have more teams. It's still more difficult to say that you will be a professional player. But the first question that you did, what we were searching more, talented players, excellent relation with the ball, good game understanding, game awareness, decision making. All of these are fundamental things for that we were searching for a player.
Did you ever see kids that like were physical specimens and you're like, okay, he's raw, but God, this guy is just more dominant physically than everyone else, and I think we can work with him? Did that ever happen?
Yeah, it happened. And sometimes clubs also think that it will be important for the team to have a player, not due to only to the performance that the player has, because you never know. Sometimes people have the idea that the physicality, it's not important because of there are both. I know that in US people say, oh, here you just search for the tall, strong, that and that. But I also think in Portugal they say that sometimes it's the opposite, and it's not. So it's important to have the balance, because you never know when a player like that could be his talent, that he will be more strong, can be more fast or faster. So all of these things are important things to judge. I would not say it's the most important thing, no, but it's also an important thing.
So we're wrapping this part one up. How do you juxtapose what you were seeing in terms of scouting players and assessing players to what you have seen in your trips to the U.S. and then your experiences with U.S. players traveling to Portugal?
I did not understand what I see.
Yeah, how do you compare the U.S. players that you have experience with, and I know it's anecdotally in some respects, to what you were seeing in terms of scouting? And did you see any? And I'm asking another question: did you see any U.S. players, even in retrospect or real life, that you could say, you know what, they could at least they at least deserve a trial at Sporting? So
Sure.
what did you see in general in terms of the profiles of U.S. players versus the players you scouted? And then did you ever see any players, even anecdotally, that you felt like could at least get a trial at Sporting? And I'm using them as an
Sure,
example.
sure. And no, I did. I did. I did. I think technically, the players some of the players that I've seen, they have the same level of the Portuguese players. So that's something I would say that they would have a chance to come and to play at the highest level in Portugal. Some of the players that I've seen, I would say that at this moment, if we talk about girls, even more. So there are more girls playing also there that here in Portugal. But I've seen players with that talent that could be here and playing at the highest level, mostly on the younger ages. Many of them.
And then what overall was your general assessment of American players from what you've experienced? What common themes did you see compared to the common themes you would see in Portugal for a typical player?
So, like I said, the main thing is technically they can be so good as the players that we have here. I would say the game understanding they are still in a different level. Portuguese is in a high level on that part. And I think the mentality, that part is completely different. The passion about the game. I think that one of the things that we can say, and I know that we are talking also about scouting, but one of the things that I have noticed more is that when we talk about the pathway, in Portugal, you see that players, when you ask them what they want to do, most of them, they say that they want to be professional players. And the pathway that you have to reach there is like a pathway from the club to the club in the end. You don't have, we haven't spoke about that, but we don't have the high school, where they play. We don't have that. So it's only club. And when you ask a player, when he is 15 years old, if he wants to, what do you want to do? They will say, I want to get a pro and I want to play in the club, the highest level. And I've asked that question in many US clubs, and most of the kids say, I want to play college. And from college, then if I can, I want to go pro. And that question is a complete different answer, and that I was not expecting when I got there.
And that makes sense. Now, guys, this is part one. We got to come, guys. It's too much to ask. So you talked about comparing the Portuguese players and this is general, to the U.S. in terms of game understanding and technical ability. But just so we can picture it, if I ask you that same question about players, say in Norway, I know it's a much smaller country, a lot of things going on. But how are you going to answer that question in terms of typical Portuguese players to what you were seeing in Norway?
In Norway, compared to Norway, we are more competitive. The competition is completely different. Since the day one, like I said, they don't want the kids to have the frustration. So that part changed also many things since the day one that they start to play. So that's an important part. Also good technically. Game understanding, I also think that we win on that part. So the game knowledge, game understanding. But the competition part is different. I think here we have the hungry to live for the game and by the game. That I cannot see, not so much in the US, because the truth, and you have mentioned that to me, we spoke about paying to play. And in Portugal, there are a lot of kids that want to receive from football because that will be the way for them to survive still, right? So, and there, if you are already playing with a structure where you pay to play, so you have money. So if you have money, would you make so many sacrifices to be in the game that you need to do? I don't know.
Look no further than my sons. They're very comfortable. So this is the speed round. We only got 2 more minutes. The highest I call it grassroots. You just call it a club, but the highest amateur club in Portugal, can they compete with the Sportings or other club or Division II clubs that have professional first teams? Or is it like night and day, like the youth teams?
Yeah, I would say yes, they can compete more because Sporting, usually their best players, they go and they play above. So then the league starts to be more equal. Like on the under-19s at the moment, Sporting will not go to the final stage because they are playing with under-17s and under-18s there. So it's really competitive for their under-17s and their under-18s. And yeah, at the same time, the other clubs that you were talking, they are playing with under-19s, so it's possible to compete with that team.
So, and we're going to speed round it. I'm going to get you back on to clarify a couple more things. Training hours. Let's say you have a U14 at Sporting. What is the commitment during the week, training hours wise, and then the gaming program?
Under 14 will have 4 times per week session plus a match on the weekend. 1 hour and 30-minute session. That's what they have. They could have a gym once or twice per week where they go there and they have also a 30-minute session, 1 hour session.
And how many coaches are going to be on that pitch assisting the head coach? So how many adults are on that pitch during those training sessions in general?
So for the under 14s?
Yeah, I'm using them as an example.
Okay, as an example. So they will have under 14 the head coach, 2 assistant coaches for one team. They have the match analysts that will be also making the analysis of the session, training session that are recorded. And they have we call it here the physiotherapist. I think you call it trainee, right?
Like physio, I know.
Okay, so that's and they have like a team manager for each team that will be there.
Wow, that's a lot of resources. Okay, guys, we're wrapping part 1 up. I'm going to get you back on in a few weeks to do part 2. Tell us your name again, just for the record, and the name of your company and what you guys are doing.
Okay, so my name is João Plantier. I'm a UEFA Pro coach. I'm also the general manager at FuteBALLER. At FuteBALLER, we work with clubs, we work with coaches, we work with individual players to try to help them to be on the higher level possible and to create opportunities for all of them, for clubs, for coaches, and for players.
And thank you so much for taking this exhaustive time to speak to me. I actually discovered you guys because I'm in the process of trying to find opportunities for my sons to play abroad. They were born in the UK, and I'm looking for an opportunity. And I've talked to friends, and we got some stuff going on behind the scenes where I'm just talking to different providers because we want a program where you get some experience. You want to see the sights. You want to have fun. I want to drink a few cocktails. But I also want my kids to be around like-minded coaches who can get them through some intense training sessions, right? So they can get exposed to the standard and then be able to give us parents and the player honest feedback on key takeaways that they can work on that year. And then on top of all of that, right? If the parent wants it, real game analysis of their film. And because you guys were ticking all of those boxes, I said, let me reach out to y'all and see what you have to offer. And I want to introduce you to our group and maybe we can make something happen. We'll see. So
That's
thank you so much. Go ahead.
That's perfect, Neil. We have many parents that reach out to us to create this opportunity for their children, and this is something that we love to do, to see how they react being in a club, having a different language at the same time, hearing for that, trying to understand, try to make it happen, show themselves with the Portuguese players on the group. It's amazing.
And I always say, these are going to be experiences that our children are going to remember for a lifetime. No one remembers that rondo they did when they were 10, but they're going to remember this trip, this once in a lifetime trip, that they had to be around real coaches, different language, Portuguese players, and they can play local teams, right? Yeah. And they get that whole experience. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for spending this time with us. And like I said, this one ran long, so I got to get you back on for another one. I just have to, because it's just too much information, and we'll have fun with it. JP, thank you so much for joining Inside Scoop. Guys, let's get better together.